She's a unicorn. And Pegasus. And why is she strapped to the roof of my RAV4?
Little background noise there. Gonna turn some of those off and get started here. Hi, this is Stephana Johnson, and you're watching Stephana Speaks. You're also listening to Stephana Speaks on Blog Talk Radio. I am coming to you on a Saturday to talk to you about simplicity parenting. That's what I focus on Saturdays. And in bringing you my pilot method today, I'd like to show you and break down the entire steps of the pilot method that I've created for families. And we'll go ahead and get started with some of the basics here. So if you've been watching me through in any of the other episodes, you know that I've been working on I've got pop-ups happening here. Not a good thing. Let me fix that really quickly. Okay, so let's start this again. So I'm Stephana Johnson. Today I'd like to teach you about the pilot method and share with you what I developed. When I was in high school, I took an elective class on aviation. Now, you know, when you're in high school, you get many choices of electives. I happened to choose aviation because I thought, well, I would be up in the sky flying an airplane. Little did I know that most of the work that I did in that semester would be in the schoolroom, opened books, learning about a slide rule, learning how to map and look at terrain on paper. And this was not what I had in mind, but I learned a tremendous amount in book form, in theory. And when it came time to actually get into the cockpit with my flight instructor, and this didn't happen actually in the learning process during the school time, it was something that we had to invest in on our own. When I actually got to the point where I was ready to put down my hard-earned $50 for my first flight with my flight instructor, I was so nervous. And all of the information that I had learned in the simulator and in the studying during the classroom was not there for me. I was completely disoriented in the cockpit. I didn't understand what was going on, what the different gauges were in front of me. I had studied a variety of different photographs of what the cockpits could look like, but I hadn't studied this particular one. I hadn't been in this particular one. And so what I was faced with was, one, disorientation, and two, an anxiety around how was I going to pilot this airplane. And the first thing that my instructor did was say, so you haven't seen this before, have you? And he helped me orient myself to that present moment by doing a very simple exercise of getting present with the physical environment. So it's just like if we learn things through a video and through scrolling on our iPads, our tactile and our physical ability to manipulate and do things in the physical universe has not been practiced yet. Now, long story short is, he basically said, well, all we're going to do is we're going to take off and we're going to go up in the sky and we're going to look around a little bit and then we're going to come back down and land. I said, would that be all right with you? And I said, absolutely. And in doing those simple actions of getting present and setting the intention so that I could see what my intention was going to be, simply taking off, looking around a little bit when we got up there, and landing. And then he gave me a few other guidelines, and he said, you know, just part of flying is lightening up a bit. So I said, just listen to what's happening, trust that the knowledge will be there, I'm right here with you, and lighten up a little bit. That was good advice he gave me. And he said, one of the things that we're going to do is observe. He didn't use the word observe, but he said, we're going to just look at how things relate, and we're going to go over the basics. And that ability to do that was what made me have more confidence to be able to make that flight and to pilot that airplane. Now, we then got out of the airplane and did a pre-flight check. And what I noticed is there was a specific toolbox for that Cessna that I was flying that day. And that toolbox would not fit for a 747. It will not fit for any other airplane. That toolbox was for that airplane. And every tool in there was for a specific purpose and a specific use, and there were not any extra tools, because I can guarantee you we had to account for every pound that was on the airplane, and we had to engage in and ensure that there was the proper amount of fuel, that there were all the figures were calculated properly, and there was protocol that had to be in place before we could safely even take off or be allowed to take off from the control tower. This is so important because what I noticed later, in fact, over 10 years later, when I had my first child, that I studied so many books as a parent prior to having my child. But the moment my child was actually here, it was like being in the cockpit for the first time. Now, I don't know any parent who has gone an entire semester of childhood training or parenting training or training of any sort of how to prepare to be a parent. And so this was very interesting to me, as how, I understand why not everyone is being a pilot. Not everyone is becoming a pilot and getting trained and doing that. It's a long process. It's a commitment. You have to focus. You have to really be diligent about your work, and you have to pay attention, or you're going to crash and burn. Well, if we look at that at parenting and we say, well, what? So we don't have to learn about being a parent. We don't have to get a mentor or an instructor to help us who knows exactly how to do this. And well, no, it's not required. You can just fly by the seat of your pants, and the result is what you'd expect. And I came to realize that for myself the moment my second child was born. I had a definite way I wanted to parent my child and children, and when my second son was born, there was a situation where I was not able to fully parent because of health reasons, because of some complications after the childbirth. And I spent quite a bit of time in bed and going through my own terrain, my own turbulence, if you will. And it was during that time that I realized how much goes into parenting, and that I maybe didn't understand exactly how to fly this airplane, including how to pilot my family and get to my destination safely. So, as being a systems-oriented type of person, I created what I now call the P.I.L.O.T method, and pilot your way, because one thing that was ingrained in me at a young age with my father is that he loved flying. He loved small airplanes, and he said, Stephana, if you don't like the course you're on, you can correct it. And knowing that when you fly an airplane, 90% of the time you are off course. But when you are up in the airplane and the terrain is down below you and you're looking out and seeing what's going on, if you react, you can literally take your plane into a tailspin, and you can overcompensate and overcorrect to the point where you can crash and burn. That's not fun. So, I mean, even getting into turbulence is not delightful. But being able to come out of that turbulence safely, every time you do that, you build your confidence. So imagine now taking that into parenting and seeing how there is an emotional terrain in each of us, in each family member, in each child. There is a different terrain. There is no one child or one parent or one spouse or one book that's going to give you the answer for your circumstance. And that's why when I talk about the P.I.L.O.T method and I use the T in the P.I.L.O.T method, tools, We have to create our own toolbox that fits just right for our airplane, for what we are piloting. And I think that's the most important piece that I want to get across to you. So let me go over the pilot method and how this looks. P is practicing presence. So we all know we're here physically. I mean, we're here. We can recognize that we've shown up and we're here. But oftentimes what happens is because we're composite and component human beings, we're composed of more than just these physical bodies. I hope you would agree with that we have a mind, and we have spiritual energy, and we have a connection to others, and we have, there's an ebb and a flow. So there's a reaction oftentimes when just that's built into our DNA, that's built into our genetic processing and code of who we are as human beings. We've got the fight or flight so that we can survive. You're either the prey or the predator back in our genetic line. We have that. So understanding that, we can then respond and develop tools and skills to pilot more safely through circumstances that might look like extreme turbulence. Practicing presence is one of the most key points of coming to that place where you've arrived and you're here in this moment, and all the book study and all of the experience and your childhood and all the wounds and trauma and everything is still what it is. But with that, we still have to be present. I use my breath on a daily basis, meaning I will sometimes just have to stand and close my eyes when I see, Legos all over the floor and food's not ready and dinner and screaming and chaos. Okay, all right, take a deep breath. And I practice presence. Now, this isn't something that you check off and you're done forevermore. Okay, so the pilot I'm not teaching a check-off list. It is specifically something as a tool to use when it's needed, and sometimes it's needed many times throughout the day. And the more we do practice that presence, it's more natural for us to come back to that moment, to sit in that space, and we'll get back on the horse when we get thrown, right? To go over on that side, I was going to say, as far as, would you get back in the airplane if you crashed? So what you would do is you'd respond, and you have to get present again so that you can go on to the next step. I is intention. For me, I like to call it sacred intention, being intentional. And it's almost as if you're establishing a prayer. I don't like to put in that it's affirmation or prayer, but it's that place of intention that sometimes we'll practice of what it is that we want for our lives. And knowing this and seeing this, especially for our children, seeing them as whole in the broader scheme of things helps so much when we are so focused on the moment by moment. And when our children are infants and very young, moments seem like a very long time because we don't maybe have the experience or the all the wherewithal in order to parent. It's very, for me when my son was born, I was this fragile little being, and what am I supposed to do? And he's crying now, and what is it? And what am I supposed to do? And it's really just understanding a new terrain and understanding, being able to take in this other being and know that you want so much for them. And how do you come from that place of wholeness to bring about the best that you can as a parent, as a mother, as a teacher? We're their first teacher, and so they're getting everything that we're modeling and being and doing. Intention. So I set intentions on a daily basis, but I also have a broader intention. So I have a broad intention overall of seeing my young boys. I see them already as these handsome young men who are confident and strong in their presence of who they are and their individuality, so that my strong personality doesn't overcome them and try to control so much of them. I mean, I know what my own terrain is that I have to work on. So intention is such a powerful piece to our lives, especially parenting. So we practice presence, we have an intention, we set our intention, and we come from that intentional place. The L is, I have 3 of them that I've brought in. Originally, I was just going to use listen, and then I realized a couple of other pieces that I really needed to implement in my life, and I added those. But listening, when I talk about that, I'm not talking about just from the ears, from sound. I'm also talking from your body, from a place of empathy. So this compassionate, empathic listening is also what I'm talking about, because we can hear our children's voices and we can hear what they're saying in words. But what are the underlying needs that are either not being met or that they are requesting, but they are not able to articulate them in words? I was going to give you an example about when a child says, "I hate you, Mommy," or "I hate you, Daddy." And it's so interesting because those words, if we listen to them from our ears and our ego, can be, well, it's painful anyway. But if we really listen to them and we step back and observe what's really going on with the child, we can find out so much, and we can really discover the needs of this child and what they are truly needing, so that we can then fulfill those needs and help them get their needs met in a safe and a viable way. So laughing is the other one, and I love this one, especially because I'm talking about pilot your way through stress. Laughter has always been, I mean, it's just a natural solution. Laughter is something we're born with. And as long as it hasn't been totally suppressed out of us or oppressed out of us by saying, "You're not allowed to laugh, that's not funny," and punished for laughing, that natural mechanism is available to us as a tool to release a lot of pressure. And allowing that pressure to release is huge in allowing the stress to release. So I highly encourage laughter. I think there are videos and documentaries on how laughter has actually healed people. Was it Norm Cousins who healed himself just with laughter from a serious disease? So laughter, I mean, just try this out. You could be fighting with your partner or having, upset and really serious and heavy, and just laugh. Just pull up laughter. Just force yourself to laugh a little bit, and then the natural laughing can occur. Yoga laughter was really popular a few years ago, and I hope that they still do that. But I remember taking a class in laughter yoga, and even now I just get giddy because the room is just this laughing. You cannot be stressed and laughing at the same time. You cannot be angry and laughing at the same time. And that is a great tool to have. That is a great sense of understanding to know and to have. Because we know how miserable things can be when we're so angry and we're having a fight and it feels like we can't overcome whatever it is. And it's almost like, talk about going on autopilot. It's like, it's just going on ahead without us, and the reactions and the garbage from our past and the excess baggage from our inner child who is wounded comes in and just starts taking over. Whoa! Well, laughter is a fabulous tool to release some of that pressure. And then love, of course. Now, love is a little different than just the touchy-feely, boyfriend, girlfriend, "I love you so much, sweet." Oh, that's so delightful, and you can feel that energy of it's just beautiful. But love also, that space, that energy that is almost ego-free. And when we parent from that ego, and we parent from that place of shoulds, you should do this now, you must do this now, because there leaves little room for that place of genuine love and awe and wonder and curiosity that is natural to a child, and that really I hope can come back to us as adults. Because when I step into that place of love, and just even when my sons can be fighting and so upset with each other, and I have really learned to practice, go through my presence, intention, okay, listening, and love, the piece about love, and just holding them in this golden light of love. I don't have to do or say anything physically, and I see a change take place in the energy that's going on. That's something for me that's very empirical, because I've seen it take place many times. And as I talk to other parents and I teach this, and I hear other parents come back to me with, wow, I can't believe that actually worked. I said, yeah. So I highly recommend, if you can, to try that one time, even just for a moment, just hold them and see them in a pillar of love, and a pillar of, if you like imagery, you can see them in this golden light, and I call that the light of love. I mean, it's really, okay, my woo-woo stuff, but it's so beautiful, and it restores that connection of genuine curiosity and delight in childhood. And yeah, I love that. Okay, so O is observation. Now, observation, I thought, was native to everyone. I thought that, well, of course you observe and you see, and you can see a child working through observation to, oh, what's this? What, curiosity. I realized that it's a skill that must be developed, especially when it's been lost. We have observation can tend to get diluted when we have less. Like, for example, when I'm speaking to a computer, although I try to visualize who my audience will be, I don't have that feedback. So I can't observe if my audience is understanding or wants more communication. But when I'm with a live audience, there's so much interaction, and I can observe what's going on, and I can observe that, oh, so I'll explain a little bit more, or I can see acknowledgments of, oh, yes, I understand that. And that's a skill, I think, that has been lost or diluted for the most part because of our interactions with Facebook and with social media and with the computer and email. We've lost that ability to observe. So that's something that I hope to bring to the forefront of us, not only as parents, but as people, that we begin to develop and hone that skill of observation. And for me, observation is a place that you're coming from free of judgment. And that also takes practice. Because many times we are brought up, and most likely all have been brought up in a way that we look at people and judge them. And that's not observation. That's not observation. So observation is noticing, free of judgment, noticing what's going on, observing what's going on. And I can tell you, when I practice that, the skill of observation allows you to really pick up on the underlying current that's carrying the situation. So to liken that to the flight, if there is turbulence, I will observe my altitude, so we can observe attitude. Altitude and attitude, for me, they are so similar in how, just translating as I work through in my own mind how I can be a better parent because of the skills and the time that I took to develop in piloting. It reminds me of the importance, and I value parenting much more than I value piloting, so why wouldn't I invest my time and my energy in becoming a better parent? Let me get to tools before I run out of time. The T is tools. And as I was saying before, when I got into the airplane, before when we were doing our pre-flight check with my instructor, the tools that were there for that airplane were specific to that airplane. They did not move and go to another airplane. They didn't go over another. And so for me, tools and your toolbox, and what I intend and really hope to share is that you can create your own toolbox. So you have your own personal toolbox. And then as a parent, you're going to help your children create their own toolbox. And you will have a tool to help, or many tools to help your child navigate their terrain as they're growing up. And also notice, for me, because I have 2 boys and they're so different, one tool does not translate over to my other son's tool and vice versa. They're totally different. And this is really an important key, because I think that there are so many books out there that there's like one size fits all. This is the way you should do it. If you do not do it this way, then there is a situation, then you're not doing it right. And I hope that we can take that burden off of having to do it this way, or you should do it this way, and that we can step more into that pilot seat and pilot our family and pilot our lives and pilot as a parent from an intentional and present way. So simplicity parenting is one of the tools that I teach, and simplicity parenting is a very valuable concept, and the power of simplicity should not be underestimated in our environment, in our commitments, in what we push on our children. Simplicity, although we may think, oh, well, it's not flashy, it's not, we've got to feed them as many facts as possible and build their brain. We're seeing more and more that that's actually backfiring, because children cannot process everything that they're, if they're parroting back a bunch of facts, are they actually able to process and understand these abstract concepts? And we know scientifically, no, they are not. So Simplicity Parenting by Kim John Payne is the book that we work through as a workshop instructor and as a certified coach. This is what I work through as one of the key tools, along with nonviolent communication and along with a few other tools that I teach in the 10-week workshop that I deliver. Simplicity Parenting, if you go to Pilot Your Way Through Stress, is a process through dealing with your environment, handling, we talk about discipline, we talk about how rhythm and routine is fundamental to developing a safe terrain so that we can navigate the different emotional terrains that come up, and we can safely get to our destination. And when we need to course correct, we do so from a place of responding with the appropriate tool. Whereas perhaps if you have a tool of corporal punishment, you're going to react using or even respond with that tool of, let's say, spanking, and that may not be an effective tool. So having new tools, or having tools that you trust and you have faith in, will allow you to fly safely to your destination and land and, you know, achieve and see come to fruition the family that you desire and what you hope to create as a parent. I'm Stephana Johnson. I hope you've enjoyed this, and find me at stephanajohnson.com or Pilot Your Way Through Stress. Have a fabulous day.